The title of my presentation today is Eyewitnesses and Evidence of Explosives at the Pentagon. The official story, as represented in the 9/11 Commission report, is that it was a surprise Pearl Harbor-like attack, which was claimed to be a kamikaze plane attack, on the west outer wall of the Pentagon by Arab Muslim terrorists who, it is alleged, were in control of Flight 77, a large commercial 757 airliner, and the claim is at exactly 9:37 and 46 seconds, it diagonally penetrated through 3 of 5 rings to the inside of the middle ring only, causing a single exit hole on the inside of the middle C ring. The west side of the Pentagon, the official story claims that Flight 77 came in at an oblique angle and did not hit the building straight on, but came in at an oblique angle. And parts of the plane, at least, it is claimed, went all the way through 310 feet. And according to Donald Rumsfeld, he made the claim that the nose of the plane poked itself out of the inside of the middle or C ring. The first claim is that it was a surprise Pearl Harbor-like attack. But the Pentagon, I now know from interviewing eyewitnesses, expected a terrorist attack on the building that morning, but with explosives of some kind. Bomb-sniffing dog teams were at the Pentagon metro stop at least as early as 7:30 a.m. I've personally interviewed a Fort Monmouth TDY auditor named Michael Nielsen, as well as the very famous Army area survivor April Gallup, for 2 hours with under oath testimony on videotape. And they both stated that there were bomb-sniffing dog teams in the metro stop at approximately 7:30 that morning, and then if they left the metro stop and presumably they were still there. So the Pentagon expected some kind of an attack, apparently with explosives that the dog teams were sniffing for that moment. We have pretty good idea from one of the 9/11 Commission staff reports, the Team 8 report, which was the one that investigated the response, or I would say non-response, of NORAD on the morning of 9/11 and anything connected with the Pentagon. And they did an interview, many interviews, but one of them, and it's now released, you can see this entire report on the web from the National Archives release, that Captain Leidig, who on the morning of 9/11 was the acting head of the Military Command Center, quote, had no awareness of American Airlines 77 coming back to Washington, D.C. His first awareness of any problem was a call from Rumsfeld's own 3-star aide, that's a very high-level officer, who asked Leidig if he, Leidig, felt the explosion in the building, and asked Leidig to investigate it. Now here's another big hint. The FBI's official 9/11 investigation code name is PENT-BOMB. Interestingly, the PENT-BOMB code name and the translation of the BOM in the code name for the word bombing was just the other day confirmed again by still FBI Director Robert Mueller in Time magazine just this May 9th. The FBI's SIOC Strategic Operations Center filled to capacity on 9/11 and remained that way through PENT-BOMB, the FBI's cryptonym for Pentagon, Twin Towers, and bombing. Now that's very fascinating because the official story, of course, in the 9/11 Commission report and all the media that follows their lead is that bombs really weren't involved at the World Trade Centers or the Pentagon. There is, in fact, major damage and deaths in the innermost A and B rings of the Pentagon in the west section. For instance, in the A ring, I did, again, going back to the interview I did with Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations on 9/11, former top Army Green Beret officer Robert Andrews. He told me, quote, my aide and I had to walk over dead bodies on the inside of the A ring. And then we have Lisa Burgess, just one other example, Stars and Stripes reporter. She said, I was walking on the Pentagon's innermost corridor across the courtyard when the incident happened. I heard 2 loud booms, one large, one smaller, and the shock wave threw me against the wall. A Marine major to the Washington Post, that Post article shortly after 9/11, the B ring between the 4th and 5th quarters was decimated. Now the B ring is just second in from the inner courtyard. It's a whole ring in from the C ring. And we've already seen there were dead bodies and damage in the A ring as well, just inside the courtyard. The B ring between 4th and 5th quarters was decimated. The heat was so intense you couldn't go in. Marine major to the Washington Post. The Pentagon Rescue Team testimony on 9/11. Quote, When we got into the building, we started to feel the heat right away, and as we walked deeper down the hallways, deeper means, and I've confirmed this with many people who work in the Pentagon, deeper means deeper towards the center, towards the courtyard, away from the alleged impact point. Further towards the center, it was just fire everywhere. Not so much smoke there, but fire all around us. You couldn't see the plane, just debris wherever you looked. Now, the C-ring is where the official story says the nose or some heavy part of the plane popped, just barely popped through the inside of the middle or C-ring. But there is good evidence that that inner C-ring famous exit hole was also made by some kind of explosives, probably shaped charge explosives that were put on the wall. This is one of many photographs that were originally from the Department of Defense that are available on the web. Mechanical engineer Michael Meyer has stated categorically, I'll give you his exact quote in a minute, that a round, clean, so-called, in quotes, exit hole is like the one seen here at the inside of the C-ring, is the signature of a shaped charge explosive and definitely cannot be, he said it was impossible, from an impact from any kind of plane debris, nose, heavy piece, otherwise. Meyer spent years in aerospace, structural design, and the design and use of shaped charge explosives. He quote, "It is physically impossible for the C-ring wall, the so-called exit hole, to have failed due to the impact of plane debris of any kind in a clean, neat circle like that. There was an oblique or diagonal impact on the outside of the outer wall of the west side, and that diagonally impacting plane and or parts of it after the first part of the penetration, this is the official story, penetrated through only 3 of the 5 rings. If a plane or any object, any impactor, would come in at an oblique angle, which the official story says, and goes diagonally through 3 rings, that you're not going to have a perfectly round exit hole. If it's the front of a fuselage or even a round engine, it would have to impact coming perpendicular to the wall. The official story, of course, says that there is a single exit hole on the inside of the C-ring, caused by whatever. Well, in fact, this is a graphic taken from the Washington Post immediately after 9/11 from Pentagon sources, DoD sources itself. And when you come up afterwards, you can see the key, if you can't see it there. But there are 3 exit holes listed from the Pentagon's own immediate sources to the Washington Post after 9/11, not just one. This is an aerial photograph that the Pentagon provided to all the media right after 9/11. You can see it on the web. This is the so-called official exit hole right here. But there are 2 others that, in turn, perfectly match these 3 so-called exit holes from the Pentagon's own release data, and here it says exit holes, plural. April Gallup, a very famous witness. I have done a 2-hour under oath videotaped interview of April Gallup. In that under oath 2-hour sworn statement to me, she states, and I'm summarizing, of course, there were huge explosions the second that she, April Gallup, hit the on button on her computer in the E-ring. She said, I thought it was a bomb. There were 2 explosions. She walked out of the alleged entrance hole, according to the official story, and yet saw no plane parts, no seats, no passenger, no luggage, no smell of jet fuel, no jet fuel fire, no burns on her body. The only fires she saw were seen coming out of the computers in a large ring around her large Army work area. April Gallup walked out of the alleged entrance hole, according to the official story, with only 1 shoe, 1 bare foot, and the floors were not hot, she said, and her soles, as you will see now, are completely unburned. April Gallup resting on the Pentagon lawn after walking out of the alleged impact hole with 1 bare foot and her soles completely unburned. Lieutenant Kevin Schaefer, the entire command center, he's referring to the Naval Command Center. The entire Naval Command Center, which was in the West Wedge first floor, exploded in a gigantic orange fireball. I felt myself being slammed to the deck by a massive and thunderous shock wave. Additional witnesses and evidence to inside explosives. Army Fort Monmouth Auditor Michael Nielsen, I've mentioned him before. Hundreds raced down the hall past me and out the south side exit shouting, "It's a bomb, bomb, it's a bomb." And multiple witnesses smelled cordite, which is definitely not jet fuel, doesn't smell anything like it. Inside explosives would explain why there was no advanced siren or evacuation, which was one of the complaints in April Gallup's lawsuit against Rumsfeld, Cheney, and Myers. The Naval Command Center was almost certainly targeted. The Washington Post said so immediately after 9/11. We know the part that was targeted. It was the intelligence center in this upper corner, which is, this is taken from here. That's that corner right there, and that's that corner, the intelligence cell. Outside terrorists would have targeted the Pentagon roof, obviously, and easier to hit command areas, for instance, where Rumsfeld and Myers worked. Not the National Command Center, or the Naval Command Center, not the CNO Intel plot, which is another apparently targeted offices, or even the sparsely populated entire West Wedge, where the official story says that a plane impacted at almost ground level, because that's precisely the one side of the 5 sides of the building, the approaches to the building, that had the most physical obstacles in the way: a hill, an antenna, light pole, cyclone fence, and large cable spools that are in advance. The government lied about inside explosions. Do you think it's telling the truth about the one and most famous outside explosion in the 5 famous frames from the 2 videotapes of the security cameras in the parking lot of the Pentagon? That the videotapes were released in the Moussaoui trial in August of 2006. Probably not, and in fact, we know not. And how do we know not? It's the wrong date. Has anyone ever noticed that that security camera video says September 12th, and it's also the wrong time? Now, it is important to know that that is one of the 5 famous leaked frames. Those were leaked in early 2002, and the Moussaoui trial didn't release the videos of which these 5 famous frames were taken in one of the 2 videos that were close to each other in the parking lot until the Moussaoui trial in 2006. Okay, so what we do know is that the wrong date is on the leaked slides, which we do know that these 5 slides, or these 5 frames, came from one of those 2 security camera videotapes in the parking lot that were released 4 years later in the Moussaoui trial. But when they were released in the Moussaoui trial, there is no date. The 85 videos that were confiscated by the FBI, there was an FOIA request. The FBI FOIA officer was honest and did an analysis of those 85 videotapes and came back to the person who requested it, just a regular citizen like you and me, who we can all put in FOIA requests. And the analysis came back from the FBI itself that there were only 2 of the 85 that in any way could be interpreted as showing an impact on the building, and those are the 2. And we know that they do not prove anything. They have the wrong time stamp, the wrong date stamp, and they do not show a plane.
The U.S.